Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to Best of Designers. Today we're taking a look at one of my favorite game designers of all time, and that is Eric Lang. Interestingly enough, the very first Eric Lang game I ever played, Senator, was like, oh, this is not that exciting of a game for me, but he's known for making tons of games, right? He's probably one of the most famous designers that's out there now, and in the past several years, he's really come out with big games. One of the things he's helped design a lot of is LCGs. I don't actually have, I think, any of those on my list. I have a collectible game on my list, but no living card games, but he has worked on many of those. Doesn't do all the end results, but gets them started, gets them rolling. He's really good at game development too, which is why he's now the head of design and development at CMON, and has done several of their games that have done extremely well. Some of my favorite games of all time come from Mr. Lang. He's also one of the sharpest people in the business. When I talk to him, he really knows what's going on, both on the design level and in the publishing level. A lot of things going on. Highly disagree with him on some of our opinions on other games that are not designed by him, but I like that he has an opinion on games like that, and a lot of fun to talk to. So here are my 10 favorite games from Eric Lang. Number 10 is XCOM. This game, when it first came out, kind of struggled, I think, a bit because it wasn't exactly like the XCOM video game. It was kind of like a macro look at it. Here comes all the stuff. And it was a cooperative game where each person has their own very specific role to play in it. And it also worked with an app, which some people were put off by. But the whole thing comes together really well. And every game's going to be a little bit different. And it's really hard. Something he seems fiendishly happy about. Number 9 is Trains and Stations. This is a game that does not get much love, but I really enjoy it, from WizKids. Which use these custom dice, and you're building little trains. It's a train game, and I like train games. But this one here, you are trying to collect things and put dice between cities, and it was a small game. Probably the production by WizKids didn't help at all, but I liked it. It was just a fun little game to connect train routes and deliver goods. Number 8, Arcane Academy. Now this game, which he co-designed with Kevin Wilson, I should mention that many of these games he has co-designed with other people. He's really good at working with other people. I can usually tell his hand on things, but many of the games on my list he's done with other folks. Where are we? Arcane Academy. This is a game in which it's like an engine building game. You are a wizard of sorts, and you have this grid in front of you, and you're putting cards, and then you're activating a card, which if it's connected to other cards in certain ways will activate those cards too. And so you kind of build these little engines and then and make them go and get cards. Very fun game. Did not get much attention at all, but I really highly recommend it. Number 7 is Quarriors. Now, Quarriors has been kind of beat out by its successor, Dice Masters. But Quarriors, when it first came out, was a fascinating game because we had deck building games. And now we had this dice building game from Eric Lang and Mike Elliott, where you were getting monsters and you buy dice and put them in and roll them. And then you put your dice in front of you and it'd be a monster and it'd stay there and everyone else might try to attack it, or else it would score points in your turn. Now, this game got better with successive expansions, especially Quartifacts, and used the letter Q to an obscene amount, but Quarriors is and was a fun game. Number 6 is Chaos Ball. Another game of his that it came out, big fanfare, then gone. But I enjoy it. There's a lot of these games out there, Blood Bowl and things like that, these games where you're playing football, but there's also a fight going on. In this one, forget the sport, it's just basically a fight. There was, I think, 13 different factions. Each faction had a very small difference, but beautiful miniatures, and it just played really well. Used the card combat system that I liked from Cosmic Encounter style, which is not the only game that he has this in. I just really enjoyed Chaos Ball. Number 5 is Godfather Corleone's Empire. Now this game, based on Godfather the movie, it's one of the meanest Euro-style games I've ever played, as you're trying to control different areas and whack the other people's mobsters, and there's a little bit of negotiation in it, not a ton, but just back and forth talking, putting money into these. I mean, the components are great, these little suitcases you put money in, and just has this very underlying gangster-style theme going on in it. I mean, and one thing he's good at is putting themes in games, and this one I really enjoyed. You know, it used to be that an IP game would be something you turn your nose up at. This time you can sit there and say, The Godfather is a really good game. Number 4 is Blood Rage. I know this will be number 1 on some of my co-hosts' lists, but Blood Rage is a fantastic game. where he took an older game of his, Midgard, which I didn't even like that much, and revamped it, added plastic, big, humongous miniatures to it, which helps, but also the gameplay, the card play. This game is just, the more you play it, the more you realize just how smooth the whole process is, where you have these big monsters that you fight with, but at the same time, dying is not necessarily a bad thing, and controlling regions on the board. A very well put together game. This may be the game he's most well known for at the end of his career. Number 3 is the game, though, that for me beats it out a little bit, and that's Rising Sun. Really enjoyed this one. Just came out this year. Very similar to Blood Rage in some ways and very different in others. And whereas a map of Japan and you're trying to control regions, you also have big monsters, but the combat system, which is one of my favorites ever, basically where you're trying to decide whether your people are going to basically give up the battle, try to capture people, try to fight them, hire Ronin. There's just a lot of really cool concepts, and it's one of those games, and a lot of his games are like this, where you feel like you're involved every step of every decision. Number 2 is Arcadia Quest. He's one of the designers on this one, and I love Arcadia Quest, one of my favorite games of all time. Little chibi figures. I'm not even a big chibi figure type guy, but this game is just so fun. You know, there's a lot of games, and we use the word fun very loosely, like, oh, this game's fun, this game. But Arcadia Quest has these fun moments where I did this and this rebounded, and I rolled dice. The exploding dice and it don't hurt at all. The fact that there's a lot of different missions. The fact that, characters. The fact that there's 5 missions and you can play like a mini campaign, or you can just play a one-off type thing. The fact that the monsters are there, but they're kind of just bags of money ready to be exploded, and you're really fighting the other players. The fact that it's short and fast and furious. I just love everything about this game. And my favorite game from Eric Lang is the collectible game I mentioned earlier, also designed with Mike Elliott, and coming from Quarriors, and that is Dice Masters. Marvel Dice Masters, DC Dice Masters, Dungeons & Dragons Dice Masters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Dice Masters, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dice Masters coming this year, Warhammer 40k Dice Masters. I love the system. It feels like the perfect combination of a deck building game and a dice game, and a little bit like Magic the Gathering. The collectible part of it, to me, I would prefer that the stuff comes out in sets, which it is going to this year. But at the same time, you don't need everything to play this game. You can play with common things and have a lot of fun. It really, to me, brings the superhero genre, which is my favorite of all the different themes for the game, to life. There's so much for this game. I can play back and forth. I'm Batman versus Spider-Man, Superman versus Wolverine, bad guys, good guys. If you can name a comic book hero or villain, they are likely in this game at some point, and multiple versions of it. It is just an entertaining, fast game for me, but I feel like there's a lot of great strategy involved in the game. Also, with dice rolling. It's just, it's like magic with dice, and that's like my ultimate combination, so that's my favorite game. There are many other games, I'm sure. Some of you would probably put Chaos in the Old World in this list, or other games. Why don't you tell me in the comments what your favorite games are of his? Great designer. Like I said, in my opinion, one of the best. Until next time, though, I'm Tom Vasel, and this has been Best of Designers, Eric Lang on the Dice Tower.